All right, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you guys are at. Again, this is Jeremy Johnson coming back with part 3 of the August monthly market update. And this series is entitled Certain versus Uncertainty. And like I like to say, facts versus fear. And I want to leave this part 3 series, this part 3 of this series. It's entitled, How Do We Know Confidently Why Prices Will Not Plummet? And we've been talking about it month over month over month. Prices are not going to plummet because of inventory. So you look at this slide here. We're getting better. We absolutely are. And you can see in July 28th of 2019, 2022, and then July 28th of this year, where we're at inventory-wise. Yes, we're in the green. I know it's blue on this chart here. So inventories, listings on the market and inventory and that supply and demand we talked about is getting better. But as I've told you before, it takes 5 to 6 months to get into a normal market, and we're still at about 1.9. So that's how I can confidently say house prices are not going to plummet. Do they, as we said in part 2, decelerate the appreciation a little bit? Yes, but you're not depreciating when you buy a house. And then another quote here I wanted to share with you by Lawrence Yun, Chief Economic of National Associations of Realtors. There are simply not enough homes for sale. The market can easily absorb a doubling of inventory and still be possibly in a seller's market. We just need that many houses. We need listings. And I understand that it's hard to think about, especially if you don't have to move or you're not forced to move in the military or the job that you're in because of the interest rates, which we're going to touch on next. But, we have to get these inventory numbers up with new builds and people bringing listings to the market before we can ever right size this and get this back to a, possibly a buyer's market. So how do we do that, you may ask? And you'll start to see here, like we talked about with interest rates, I wanted to hit on. Here's the mortgage rate projections for the fourth quarter of this year through the third quarter of next year. So for the next year, what this chart shows you is that the projections over the fourth quarter of this year and the first 3 quarters of next year, so for over the next 12 months, what the top 3 projections are and where we're going to be at. So we're in the upper 6s right now, and they're projecting that we'll get down in the 6.27 area on average in the fourth quarter of this year, and it starts to tick down as we're going into the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter of next year. So how are we going to do that, you ask? And we've talked about it before, and that's purely outlined in this chart here, and that's the whole we'll start to see, so the inflation's going down. That's how we're going to start to do it. See that. As you saw in July right here, inflation was at 8.9 and 7.0. But what we need to do to get that percentage point down is we have to shorten that gap, or that spread they call it, between the 10-year Treasury yield, as we talked about a couple months ago, that is historically at 1.7 and it's in the historic high of 3%. We need to get that down in the 2% range. And historically, and it's shown on this chart and the next couple charts, when inflation starts going down, that spread will start going down, and that's how the experts project that we'll get down, to the 3/4 of a point, or 3/4 of a percentage of an interest to a point of an interest. And it shows you on this chart right here, mortgage rates trend to track government bonds and inflation with a slight lag, and you can see that going all the way back to 1972. So in the green is the 30-year fixed rate mortgage rate, and then the blue is inflation. So as inflation goes up, mortgage rate goes up. As inflation starts to go down with a little bit of a lag, you'll start seeing the interest rates go down, and that's because we're shrinking that spread between the 10-year and the 10-year Treasury yield that we've talked about before. And so that's what the projections are. So hopefully that helps you out, gives you some hope, but I will warn you that we start cutting a percentage on the interest rate and we get back down into the 5s. We still have an inventory issue and an inventory concern that we talked about month over month. That is just going to flood buyers into the market. So like we like to tell a lot of individuals, now, and even Dave Ramsey has said it before, if you haven't heard on his podcast, now is the best time to buy a house. Get in, and when that mortgage rate drops an interest point, then you can always refinance. So we love to talk to you. We hope these facts kind of alleviate some of that fear and that uncertainty, and kind of putting you in a certain place and in a factual place and a confident place that you'd reach out to your trusted agent, reach out to us at Journey Home Realty. We love to help you out, educate you through the process, walk you through the process, and make sure that we're putting you into a home with a monthly payment that works for you and your family. So thank you for listening this month, and we'll be back again next month. Thanks. Have a wonderful last month of the summer. If you've got kids and they're going back to school, we pray for a safe and amazing school season. Thank you for all you do, and appreciate you. God bless.